Welcome to the June episode of Here's the Stitch. We are doing something really unique in June with current political climates and all of the things happening in the world right now. We really wanted to take the month of June to really propel a couple of what we're referring to, for lack of a better term, and if there is a better term, I would love to hear it, queer makers. So this is, joining me now is Chase. Chase is the first interview we're going to do, and then we have three others. So we're really focusing on these four makers for the month, but we are also going to be doing as much as we can to promote other makers. We really want to spend this month really lifting these folks up. We believe here at Queen City Yarn that everybody deserves security and happiness and being just safe. So this has always been a safe space for all minorities, and bringing queer makers to the front of the classroom this month is just kind of a part of that. So with me is Chase. How are you?
Hi, Janice. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for uplifting queer voices. You know, not speaking for the entire LGBTQIA plus community, but queer is definitely my preferred identity term. I love identifying as queer, and I think it really encompasses the way that it intersects in my day-to-day life. So I appreciate you and Queen City Yarns for taking the time to chat with myself and other queer makers.
Yeah, excited to do it. I've already recorded the other three interviews, and they were all incredibly interesting folks. So I had never met any of them before. You and I have interacted briefly in a previous project. But yeah, so excited to get to know you more and do a little bit to help share the word of Chase this month. So yeah, let's start with, how long have you been knitting? Or
Yeah,
how did you
I
learn how to knit?
always. What was that?
Or how did you learn how to knit?
Yeah, I both of them kind of like intersect together because it happened like pre 2020, so I can never remember what exact year it was. But I always have to like look at my Instagram and like scroll back to when I first posted about it.
Hmm.
I believe it was 2018. Having not looked at Instagram, scrolling all the way back that far in a little bit, I believe it's 2018. I learned my sister-in-law was in New York. She was a knitter at the time. I was in a PhD program and was getting really frustrated with the intangibility of working on a dissertation. And I wanted something I could quite literally feel with my hands. And so I knew that Taylor could knit. And I just sent her a text of like, how do I get started? And she would sent me, here's what you go buy at Michael's and just watch videos on YouTube. And I've been kind of falling down the rabbit hole ever since then.
Awesome. That's great. I'm kind of jealous that you found knitting during college. I can't imagine having had time to knit while I was in college. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was like definitely like a huge like stress relief because you know it's a big research project that I was working on and a lot of uncertainties, and so it felt nice at the end of the day to have something that was quite linear in its
Mhm.
progress.
Yeah, I
It,
physically see, like, I did this today.
yes, and if you put enough time into it, it eventually is complete. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way, but
Mhm.
it definitely moves a lot faster than a dissertation can.
Yeah. How long did you take to work on your dissertation? Or are you still working on it?
I completed it in 2021. It took about, I was in the entirety of the program. It took about 5.5 years.
Yeah. So slow progress, but definitely progress. I can see why. I can see why having something in your hands would be really useful. Seeing that you've accomplished something for the day.
Yeah, and then the knitting has kind of outlasted the interest in academia at least, so it survived that. And I definitely am appreciative of when I started knitting because I was learning all these like programming and research skills, and I've definitely like taken that into my design work, and it's been it's been really exciting and honestly like healing in a way to use what was a very traumatizing process, the whole graduate school process, and repurpose it for something that I love doing, which is designing knitwear for a variety of bodies and identities, and empowering other crafters to kind of take their own creativity into my own patterns.
Nice. Yeah, that's kind of how I found knitting. I went to art school, and then once I was working my corporate job, realized that I really missed that creative environment of art school. And so I needed to find something. And I tried pottery, that was fine. But then when I found knitting, I did. I found my place. I found that creative outlet again, which was necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know I was missing it. It was in a very intellectual place. Creativity isn't always rewarded in those types of spaces. And so it was not a breath of fresh air, but a real gale of fresh air in the face of being like, oh, I've been needing this. This is just like a human need of mine to create and to make. And I think a part of me is like I think it could have been anything, but I'm appreciative of the serendipity that my sister-in-law that I'm close to was just knitting at the time, and she was like, "Here you go." Like two text messages, and then I was off to the races.
Awesome. Do you crochet as well?
No, I am a super obsessive person, and the PhD and the short amount of time that I've been knitting is any indication. I tend to like hyper fixate on certain things. So as I was like quickly realized that this was going to become an obsession of mine, I was like, I can't crochet. I literally like cannot allow myself to crochet because I want to focus very specifically on knitting. And I've continued to maintain that. I have no issues with crochet. I definitely see them as a, kindred spirits in the fiber arts. But it's not something that I've ventured into because I'm still honestly pretty hyperfixated on knitting.
Same for spinning, like just haven't gone there.
Yeah, honestly, I've played around with different like crafts, and I just recently picked up sewing, and that seems to have like stuck the most. But honestly, even sewing, I can't do as easily in front of the TV. So knitting has a tendency to win out even then.
Mhm.
But definitely, since I've learned to sew, honestly, this year. I found it helpful to kind of get out of creative like knitting ruts. I teach students knitting. It's been something that I've taken on this year, and something that I try and impart on them is that like I am the most obsessed with knitting that I've met of anyone in my life, and I take breaks from it. So I think it's super important to impart that nothing has to be forever, even if it's your favorite thing in the world. And so I've tried to take that in and use it to explore other creative avenues.
Yeah. It's actually a very common thing for people to walk away from knitting for years and then come back to it at a different season in their life that it's necessary or available again. And yeah, it's like riding a bike. You never really forget how to knit once you learn how to do it. So might need a
Yeah,
couple of minutes on the YouTube to remind yourself, but that muscle memory comes back quickly.
yeah, I had a beginner student this previous season, and her like grandmother taught her when she was very young, and she in like the first class she was like off to the races, and she's like, "Oh, it's been like 20 years, but I like remember it." I was
Yep.
like, "That's great."
Yeah, that's awesome. So how did you transition from learning to knit via YouTube and inspiration from your sister-in-law to designing fantastic patterns in knitwear?
Yeah, I'm obsessive. It was always gonna happen. Like basically, as soon as I picked up the needles, I was like, oh, I like want to like mechanically understand every single thing that's happening underneath this, and it to me it felt like an inevitability. And I guess I released my first patterns in 2020, so really it was like 2 years after I had started knitting. I started releasing patterns, and I maybe jumped the gun a little bit. I've learned a lot in the 5 years since I started releasing patterns, but yeah, I kind of always knew that I wanted to translate what was in my head into stitches and into design work.
Later on in the episode, folks will hear me have a conversation with Wooly about something similar. Like her and I both see things in 3 dimensions. So understanding how a flat piece of work then translates into a 3 dimensional garment was for her and I inevitable. Were you the same way, like seeing how the form comes together really easily?
I think it was more of an interest in just like wanting to get things that fit my specific body. I think that has been super crucial to my entire design work. And it's been something that I haven't been designing these entire like past 5 years. I've taken some breaks. I mean, I took like a significant break to finish my dissertation, which was an extraordinary amount of work. But I took the time to finish that, get a full-time job, and then kind of revisited design again, and really wanted to take a very critical look at how I'm designing things and how I could better gear that to fit to a wider array of bodies. And I'm not saying that what I've done is perfect, but I've included a lot of options and accommodations in my patterns for a wide variety of bodies. I'm also very fortunate that I have a frequent testers and a frequent like diversity of testers that are trans identifying, and they give me really important feedback on how my garments fit their bodies and how I can better accommodate their bodies in my patterns. For me, it was the knit space is dominated, and it's 95% of women identifying designers, I would say, and they're designing first and foremost for women, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally fine. It's how the fashion world at large works. But I have broad shoulders and I have a deep chest, and it's not going to fit into the majority of sweater patterns, and hasn't. I've knitted sweaters before that I ended up not fitting into and fit perfectly to dimension, fit to this schematic. And then I was like, oh, I kind of just need to accept that uh, my body is a little bit different than the average body. And I really wanted to play around with the idea of how I could like loosen up the idea that body sizing is based on averages. I have a PhD. I'm a bit of a data nerd. Body size data is really poor, and not only is it really poor, it's based on averages for a given chest size. And doing an average of poor data results in a poor, single estimate. And so there's a wide swath of people that are fitting into a variety of garments that don't fit them well. You can go to the mall and you try on 3 different t-shirts that are all the exact same size, and maybe one of them will fit you correctly. And it's because what the data that people are playing around with is so variable. And so I really wanted to figure out how can I empower the people that are making my patterns to create a garment that is best going to fit their bodies and be the end result is going to be exactly what they want it to be. And so that's really what I've been toying around with. It's definitely an ideal. I definitely don't see it as like something that I can like finish or complete, but I think that's really what's come about of all that.
Yeah. Um, Fast forwarding to later on in the episode, my conversation with Chin is very much like that. They saw a need for, and they talk about it in the way of knitwear for the male presenting body. and seeing just a void there, which is absolutely true for those of us women who try to knit for our husbands and the male body. It's challenging. I mean, the body type, the body build is different. And being able to make those accommodations or tailoring it to your specific body is incredibly important, no matter, what gender you're presenting as. So I really like that, particularly the two of you are really kind of playing in that space and trying to create more patterns in that space that are geared towards the male presenting body and their desires to have knitwear as well.
Yeah, and not just, I think that recently what I've been venturing more into is what I call like masculine silhouetted patterns, but I definitely want them to be appealing to and able to fit cisgender women as well, because, at the end of the day, the vast majority of people that are knitting are cisgender women and they enjoy knitting for themselves. And I want my patterns to be able to fit cisgender men, cisgender women, and everyone in between. And I want them to get a silhouette that they love. And so, I just released this like polo collection called the Signature Knit Polo Collection. And it's definitely a masculine silhouetted polo pattern. But that masculine silhouette is seen in women's wear very consistently. Like I would say it's like one of the most consistent masculine silhouettes is the polo. And so I definitely worked on my sizing to fit cisgender women and to be appealing to cisgender women in addition to cisgender men, although the silhouette is like undoubtedly reads as masculine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, female fashion, if you look at, the corporate world, it very much does have that more masculine influence to it. So,
Yeah.
yes, I remember that world and it didn't fit me well. um, so talk more about the polo and how there's a million different sizes, and you've really done a great job of kind of making this something that works for everybody. So tell us more about the polo in general.
Yeah,
Or
I've been working
polos.
on it for a very long time. I kind of sort of like a confluence of things happened. So one, I think I wanted to take like a step back. I felt like I was designing like really specific garments. So garments with like a very specific vision and fit like a very like specific like like role in someone's like wardrobe, and I wanted to see and like challenge myself to make something like a little bit more general. So, there's a million like stockinette raglan sweaters you can make out there. There's like all sorts of variations of different types of like sleeve sets making stockinette sweaters. And that's not a bad thing. I think it's a very good thing. There's lots of variations within those. And I think if that's what you're interested in making in, I think that's what you should make. But I kind of wanted to say, what's the general like idea or like garment that I can kind of put my stamp on? And so, I have a masculine body. I've worn polos my entire life. And when I was looking around for hand knit polo patterns, they all kind of fell into what I felt like I was falling into, which is like this very specific design. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I felt like they all had like a very specific silhouette, or they would have like a raglan sleeve instead of the classic set-in sleeve, or they would have like a textured stitch, and there would be something in them that I wouldn't say was necessarily like the prototypical polo. And so I was like, I think that there's like a need for just like a basic polo pattern. And I fell down this rabbit hole of just being like, what is the basic polo? And that wasn't an easy answer. And I really had to rein myself in, even though it doesn't seem like that in the pattern sometimes, of trying to say like, what is this that I'm going to craft, and how am I going to like generalize this entire concept that has been iterized upon by every single fashion label for the past like 50 years. And so, really, my first step was I went to the mall with a measuring tape. And I just wanted to see how do polos change across sizes, across stores, and across like men's and women's wear. And I was really nervous to go because I was like worried I was gonna get in trouble for like measuring these garments and like doing like like spy measurements or whatever. But the staff at these stores like quickly realized what I was doing and they got really into it and they started like hunting around and finding polos for me to measure. So yeah,
Awesome.
it was really fun, and I've started recommending it as just like general advice of like anytime you're about to make a garment, it's kind of fun to go to the mall and just like see if you can find what you want and start measuring it so you know what the dimensions are that you like. But yeah, so I took some measurements. I saw how things like varied and how I wanted to like be graded. And then, going back to my background in the PhD program, I have a lot of like data science experience. And so I coded up a program to start grading out my patterns for me. That was kind of the next step is I was getting really bogged down in spreadsheets and I don't like how the Microsoft suite of products work. I found it really frustrating and clunky to use, and I have all this coding experience, and I was like, I'm just going to code up my own program to grade all this out for me. And so that's what I started playing around with within this specific pattern is like creating like a generalized coding framework to do all my grading for me, and then taking that to be able to like write my patterns. So that's really how the polo came about, and it took a very long time to develop all of this, but that's what happened with it.
All right, so one quick question. Is it a true set-in sleeve?
It is a true set-in sleeve, so it's a top-down knit seamlessly, and it uses the short row method, but it will result in a set-in sleeve. So the one that I'm wearing right now is has 8 inches of positive ease in it, and it's graded to be oversized. There's a trend in set and sleeve garments right now to fall off of the shoulder and gives it like a more of an oversized silhouette, even though the overall amount of ease is like still within that like common like bounds of being like around 6 to 8 for men's wear and 4 to 6 for women's wear for like the standard sweater garment. But yes, it is a true set and sleeve.
Nice, awesome.
Yeah.
Um, I really like that you're taking the time to do kind of the research end of this too. And I think that's one of my frustrations with the knitwear designers in general. It seems to be this desire to produce, 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 and have a new pattern every X amount of weeks or whatever, without really taking the time to dig into these details and figure out what is the best pattern, what accommodations or what tips and tricks can you include in there for people to tailor it more to their needs. So yeah, I like that you're really digging into the research end of it too. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, my background is in research, so I take that very seriously. And honestly, I found it really fun. I think, I taught a sweater knitting class, and my key piece of advice to that and to any student is I think it's underrated measuring garments you already have and that you already love. And not just in the chest. I think that you should be measuring every single part of that garment, even if it's a different sleeve construction, still getting the sleeve measurement, the upper arm measurement, and getting like the hip girth and getting, all these have like sneaky decreases in the body too. So figuring out what the shape is in the body is all really important and crucial to replicating into your own hand knit garments. And I think it can help you avoid some pitfalls when you see a schematic and a bunch of data and your eyes go across. You have a garment that you already love, and you can start comparing it to that garment you already love and making sure that the finished result is going to be what you want it to be.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think there tends to be this desire to take knitted garments and almost turn them into fast fashion, like to produce them quickly and get on to the next one. And while that can be fun at times, cast-on-itis is a thing. But if you're going to spend that much time to make a garment, you want it to be something that A, you're going to wear, and B, you just truly love because it is tailored for your body. Yeah, like I said, I love that you're digging into the analytics like that, and the research like that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So this has clearly not been a short project. When did you start on the polo collection?
So I knew I was going to do this. So I guess I should cycle back a little bit and take a couple of steps back. That I jokingly but also seriously tell people that the only reason I keep Facebook is for the ads, and it's very true. And like the algorithm has figured out that I will click on any knitwear that they see. And so I was getting a bunch of knit polos like in my Facebook ads, and honestly in my Instagram ads now too. And I'll click them and screenshot them and look at them and be like, how could I construct this by hand? And one that I'm wearing right now is like definitely inspired by a King and Tuckfield polo. And yeah, so I was seeing these polos that advertised as being 100% merino wool, and they're like designer luxury labels that like the King and Tuckfield brand dressed Ryan Reynolds throughout the entire like Barbie press tour. So these are like red carpet like couture knit garments, and they're going for thousands of dollars. And I was like, I can make that. And so that was part of the challenge too, is that I was getting all these ads for like these thousands of dollars for like 100% merino wool garments. And I was like, I can do that myself. I want to figure out how to do that. And that was part of the challenge. So I was getting these ads, getting bombarded by these ads because I kept clicking on them. So of course they're gonna keep interacting with them. So I think I ordered the yarn like honestly I think in like January of last year, and then really I went to the mall to take my measurements in about June after I cleared off stuff on my plate. So the planning process was quite significant, and then I got the pattern out in May and of this year.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. But yeah, like that's a slow burn.
I think the biggest thing was getting the program up and running to grade my patterns and to make sure that it was like functioning properly. I sourced my body size data from a variety of sources, but I primarily like sourced it from the American Society for Testing Materials, which a lot of like big name fashion industry people use for their own body size data. And I've kind of collated that and spent time winnowing that down. So making sure that it was like running through the program and quality controlling that took a long time. But the cool thing about it is now I've gotten like super fast at grading patterns. It's something I'm really excited about. I'm actually working on. I released my first sweater pattern was this Animal Crossing inspired colorwork garment, and it is its 5-year anniversary this year in September, and I'm basically building that pattern up. Like literally, it's going to be a completely new pattern. I'm updating it, and I'm using that program to help smooth things along and make sure that all the numbers work out. And I think I want to have it done by the end of this week. So that's really fast.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So this program is something you'll be able to use over and over again, maybe with some minor adjustments, but this is a long-term tool for you.
Yes, definitely. And that was kind of like what I wanted. Like that's kind of what I imagined it as. Is that I was like, I know I want to make this like polo. I know like I want to like take like something that is relatively simple. I'm putting that in quotes because I've had people be like, "Oh, this was a challenging pattern," after they made the polo. But it's a stockinette stitch, and it's relatively straightforward, and then use that to spin out more complicated things. And it's been effective. I think for me, like obviously, I'm an obsessive person, and so I was like obsessing about this pattern for like over a year. And I was like, I need a way to like get things out of my brain faster so that I can stop like obsessing
Yeah.
over it. And
Yeah.
this program has been very helpful in facilitating that and making sure that my numbers are still really solid and that it's consistent with my overall ethos of making sure that there's lots of options depending on your preference and your body type.
That's awesome. Are you ready for the rapid fire questions?
Yeah,
All
I'm ready.
right. English or continental?
I learned English and then I switched to Continental and then stranded. I do both.
Okay. Cats or dogs?
Dogs, 100%. I'm allergic to cats, but I do dog sports. That's my non side hustle hobby.
I will tell you, you're in the minority there. At least in terms of these slew of interviews. Coffee or tea?
100% coffee.
Sweet or savory?
Oh, definitely sweet. I have a voracious sweet tooth. It is like out of control.
Metal or bamboo needles?
Metal. A friend very early on taught me or told me to get Chiagus, and I got them, and I haven't looked back. So it's all I use.
Yep. Do you have a least favorite stitch or technique?
I don't do a ton of lace. It's mostly because I can't like wrap my head around it. But maybe one day I'll tackle some more complicated lace. But I had some bad run-ins early on.
That's awesome. Do you have a current whip that you can tell us about?
Yeah, I'm going into your stitch night here in a little bit. I got it in front of me. I'm working on something I'm very excited about. This is a, corner to corner cowl, but this pattern is going to be gaugeless. And I don't mean any gauge. I mean you literally don't need to know your gauge in order to make this. It works on any size yarn and any size needle, and I got lots of variations planned out for it. I think this is like my fourth sample of this, just to make sure that it is truly gaugeless, and I'm pretty excited about that.
Interesting. What are you currently reading or watching?
Right now I'm reading a book called The Spear Cuts Through Water, and it's really amazing. I kind of picked it up on a whim, but it's this like fantasy book, but it's told like a folk tale, and it's like very much about like passing down this like specific like cultural like tale, but it's all completely fantasy, and it's also a queer love story at the middle of it. There's a lot of like intersecting things happening. It's really, really beautiful, and highly recommend it.
Awesome. That sounds interesting. All right. Well, that's all I had for questions. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, this has been absolutely lovely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to chat with you.
Likewise.
Yeah, yeah. Skipping ahead to what everybody else is going to watch, the four of you have a lot of crossover, but you're also all very, very different. But a lot of you are kind of dancing in the same spaces and thinking about the same things. And I think that's really great. I've really enjoyed kind of picking your brains and hearing what you guys are working on and thinking about. And yeah, you guys are all very thoughtful, I guess is the best way to put it. You're all very thoughtful in your designs and your design process and making them something for the greater the greater landscape and not just, this one little box of folks. So
Definitely.
I think that's really great. So, like I said, I've enjoyed chatting with all four of you, and it's been really fun. So, I'm not 100% sure what our lineup order will be, but I did all of those interviews in the same day. So I started in, where did I start that morning? Italy. And then I went to Istanbul via our app here. And then I landed in California, all in a matter of like 3 hours. So it was really fun to chat with the three of them. So we didn't touch base on where you are. Where are you? Where are you based out of?
I'm in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I will be in Ohio for the first time ever for a knitting thing in July. So
Nice. What for?
I will be at Make Do in Cincinnati for the Heartland Yarn Crawl. So
Oh, nice.
I have no idea like Ohio geography, but I'll be there if you want to swing by. I don't know that.
Yeah,
Cincinnati
it's
area.
Columbus is like smack dab in the middle, and then Cincinnati is on the southern border, and then Cleveland's on the northern border. So that's the easiest way to do the geography. So I'm right in the middle of the two of them. So that would be lovely to swing down. There's quite a vibrant yarn community here. Something I was kind of surprised about when I moved up for grad school.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for your time, and I'm excited to work with you this month, and hopefully going forward with some other fun and exciting projects. So I love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Chase.
Yeah. Talk soon in a little bit. Bye.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm not bad. Are you?
I'm hanging in there. I've got my second cup of coffee here.
Excellent.
It's way later in the day at your house, right?
It is. Yeah, it's heading into evening time here in Italy. Yep. Yep.
Well, why don't you introduce yourself, person from Italy?
Okay, hi. I'm Woolly Wormhead. I am a knit designer that specializes in hats, and I live in a small town in the middle of Montefeltro in central Italy, halfway up a mountain and beautiful countryside.
Well, that
So,
sounds
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say it is a pleasure to meet you. I have followed your work for, I think, since I started knitting. I'm not 100% sure. We'll touch on when you started designing. But I think you started designing about the time I started knitting.
I've been here a
And
long time.
I've always been fascinated by your designs. They're incredibly unique, and I'm really excited to chat with you today and
Thank you.
let you tell a little bit about your story.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. So let's start off with how long have you been a knitter?
Okay, so a long time. My mum taught me to knit when I was 3, and I'm 54 now. So yeah, been knitting
Awesome.
since I was 3. Always knitting since I was 3.
Really? You never like gave it up in high school or college or anything like
No,
that?
there were a few times when maybe I only knit 1 or 2 jumpers in a year, the slow periods. But otherwise, yeah, I was always knitting, always knitting.
That's impressive that at 3, like you got
Yeah,
it and stuck with it.
yeah,
Awesome. Was
yeah.
your mom a prolific knitter? Like, did she knit all the time?
Yeah, my mum was always knitting, and her sister as well. I asked her to teach me. I wanted to know how to do it. So yeah, so she used to make a lot of our clothes when we were little. In the 70s, it was kind of like um, much more cost effective then to kind of like make your family clothes than it is now. So yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you have a favorite jumper or something that your mom made you?
I have a baby blanket here that she made for me when I was a baby, and I have it in my studio. I don't have many other pieces that she's made me, but I have that. Yeah,
Awesome. Those heirloom pieces are
yeah.
so amazing. Okay, so you've been knitting since you were 3. I'm gonna assume you didn't start designing then.
No, but I was always experimenting with my stitches when I was little. One of my fondest memories is sitting in Camber Sands, which is a place kind of in Essex where a lot of people have static caravans and go on holiday and stuff. And sitting there with my dad's dad, my granddad, and I was making a dress for one of my dolls. And I was explaining to him how I'd worked out how to increase and change the shape in my knitting. I was knitting with 2 strands of yarn together, and I worked out that if I knit each strand individually, I would change my number of stitches. And I was like 6 or 7. So that's kind of, I was always experimenting. I mean, I don't remember the very first thing that I designed, but the first garment I designed was a jumper for myself, and I was 12.
Wow. That's awesome. I wish I had learned to knit that young.
It was just kind of like, it's just what I did. It's just what clicked with my brain, and the very first jumper I knit for myself, I was 9. The first one I designed, I was 12. And so it's just kind of like, and it was a raglan sleeved roll neck in pieces, so it was seamed, made to fit me as a 12-year-old. Yeah.
Awesome. What were you
I don't have it anymore. It wouldn't fit, but yeah.
What kind of yarn were you working with then?
Then it would have been an acrylic mix or something. We had a yarn shop in our little town where I grew up, and it was one of the really kind of old school yarn shops where they'd put the yarn away for you. You'd go in and say, I want to make a jumper, and you'd need X balls, and they'd put them in a bag for you out the back, and you'd go in each week and buy a couple of balls, because that's budget knitting. It wasn't I don't remember knitting with pure wool at that age. No, that came when I was older.
Awesome. All right, so you designed a jumper at 12.
Yeah.
When did you start publishing patterns for others to explore?
20 years ago, in 2005, was when I first started writing patterns. That's when I first started publishing patterns. I'd written a few patterns before then for some big colourwork projects that I did as a teenager. I kind of like dove straight in at the deep end with a big, giant, stranded, huge, big oversized jumper that I dyed all the yarn for, designed everything for it. So I used to write patterns for myself to document what I was doing, but publishing them I started in 2005. Yeah. On my blog.
I was right. I was right on the timing.
Yeah. Right, and that was right in the early days of knit blog and designing as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you primarily design hats, correct?
Yeah, that's all I do.
Okay. Your hats are incredibly unique. I don't think anybody has even attempted to copy your style in any sort of way. So let me into your brain. Tell me explain.
Okay, so hats are the most three-dimensional garment that we can wear. Mm-hmm. And I am really into 3D. I have very acute spatial awareness. I can visualize things in my head and spin them around, look at them from different angles. And so I kind of love getting into that side of it and kind of exploring what I can do in 3D instead of 2D. All right. I like to explore construction. I like to see what happens to our stitches when they turn them in a direction. I like to know how something's going to behave when we kind of turn it all around and mix it up. It's like working with sculpture for our heads, basically.
So you say hats are the most three-dimensional thing we make, but am I wrong that most of your hat patterns are actually knit flat?
They're not all knit flat.
Okay.
But I am known for my sideways knit hats, yeah. I do like to turn it all through 90 degrees and see what happens and work that way around and work side to side. So yeah, I have a lot of patterns that are worked sideways. We looked at it recently. There's about 100 of those.
Okay.
But I've got about 400 published patterns, so that's not all of them.
Okay, so
I
it's
do
only
I
four.
do quite a few modular as well, so it's yeah.
Why? Why knit a hat flat when you could easily knit it in the round?
Oh, okay. Because you get to play with short rows, which I think is a brilliant reason to do it. But also, I don't know, your stitches behave differently. You get a different result, you get a different effect. I like seeing what changes when you turn something on its side. And I like using garter stitch as a base for my sideways knit hats. And it is, when you turn garter stitch on its side, it behaves like a 1x1 rib, except it's softer and squishier, you know? And you can do all sorts of really cool things with it. The humble garter stitch is really, really versatile, and you can do so many things with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to see what happens. I like to turn things on the side and play with short rows. But also, you know what? When you cast on a vertically knit hat, once you've cast it on, its size is kind of set.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if you work top down, then you've got some more flexibility to change the size. But when you work sideways, you can kind of go, right, do I want it? Do I need to add an extra panel? You can adjust the size. The length is what gets set when you work sideways, but the circumference you can adapt and change without having to rip the whole load out. So it's kind of, you know, it's got its benefits to it. Mm-hmm. But also you knit, so when you work a sideways knit hat, you work a little bit of the crown, a little bit of the body, and a little bit of the brim in every single row.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
You work a panel or a wedge over and over and over again. And for a brain like mine, I'm autistic with ADHD. This stops me getting bored. It kind of keeps the momentum, because even for a hat, if I start a brim and then work the body halfway through the body on a vertically knit hat, I've tapped out. I'm bored. I don't have the kind of focus threshold to be able to knit larger items. So a sideways knit hat means that I can work that same wedge over and over again, and you start to memorize it. And it means that you don't have long sections where you're going to get stuck in one area. You're working a little bit of each all the way through, and it's a really nice rhythmic way to work. And it works brilliantly with hand-dyed yarns because it breaks up pooling and it does things. You get at the crown really kaleidoscopic effects. There's loads to knitting sideways knit hats. That's just, yeah.
Yeah, I've never thought of so many of those reasons. Yeah. So what inspires you to design a hat, and how do you decide if it's going to be knit flat?
I like exploring technique and shape.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to release hat collections that have a theme. I'll release individual patterns as well that I might have ideas that I want to explore, but normally I kind of work in a kind of theme and develop 5 or 6 hats around one theme. Mm-hmm. And I like to get into the technique and see what I can do with it and give myself some criteria that I need to work with to develop the hat. So it's normally technique led. You know, the kind of discussion of, are you a process knitter or a product knitter? I'm a process designer as well as being a process knitter. It's the process that kind of gets me through, and what can I do with this technique, and what's going to happen if I do this with that, and how complicated can I make my graph this time? Or how can I not make it complicated? Because that's one of the things I like to do, is actually a lot of people tell me that my patterns look intimidating, but they're not. They're not at all, because I like to refine the process. Once I've gone through and worked out what I want to do and how this stitch is going to behave and how I'm going to get the pattern, I then try and work on simplifying it and refining it to the point. I mean, I've had so many beginner knitters work some of my sideways colourwork, short row colourwork hats, and the beginners, and they've just gone ahead and made them because nobody's told them that short rows are difficult, and nobody's told them they can't do grafting yet.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so they're not difficult; they're just different.
Yeah. So let's go back to your collections. Is that something where you kind of come up with a new idea or come up with a new technique or just come up with a shape in general? And then the whole collection is you kind of exploring that? Whatever that
Sometimes-
is.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the construction is the theme. Sometimes it's a more abstract theme inside a construction method. So I've just finished a collection of hats that are coming out in this coming autumn that are all sideways short row colour work, but they're all leaf and line. So that was my theme for this one, something more organic. They're all sideways. They all use leaf and line in different ways to work all the way through. But then there's been other collections that have been entirely about the construction. This collection here is called Cuboidal, and it's all modular knits, done minimally with no sewing up, working mitre squares in the round and joining as you go, you know, because I really wanted to do something with modular knitting without all the fuss that comes with modular knitting. So I wanted to rethink how I could do it. So it depends. Sometimes it's a construction, sometimes it's a theme that I want to explore within that construction method. It could be different things.
Okay. And then do you ever come back to a theme later on? So say, how old is the modular knitting? Is that a pretty recent thing?
Cuboidal came out in 2022.
Okay, so say in 2028, what are the chances that you decide, you know what, that modular knitting thing I was doing was really cool. I'm going to revisit that. Is that something you've done? Gone back and kind of revisited a theme?
Yeah, but it normally ends up kind of changing. I mean, I'm actually working on a new collection for next year, or just about to start to, and it is another modular collection, but it's not using mitre squares. It's using some elements of sideways knitting with the modular knitting. So it kind of, I will revisit themes, yeah, but kind of with a twist or to change it.
That is something I've noticed about designers. They kind of start in a place, and it's almost like if you look at their collections or their designs in chronological order, it's almost like you can see them learning things or looking to explore new things, or just straight up coming back to something. You know, I started here with this thing and I really enjoyed that, and it kind of evolved. But then bringing yourself back and resetting and then seeing how it evolves the second time.
Yeah, it is. I think that's, I mean, my first thinking of sideways knit hats, because that's one of the things that I'm, you know, known for. I published my first book on sideways knit hats in 2007.
Okay.
And I really went to town on it. And it was my biggest flop ever because everybody just was like, you know, what's this? And I continued designing sideways knit hats, but less and less and less, because I was kind of like demoralized by kind of like, you know, I've got to try and earn a living here. And it was like, nobody wanted to buy them. And then I was like, no, this is where I'm happy. This is what I want to do. So I went proper into it. And then things changed, and then people started going, oh, right. So when I actually kind of like indulged myself in my current special interest and really went in deep dive into it, that's when it really changed. So that was definitely a big revisit, a long gap there where I didn't produce so many sideways knit hats. But I think that's part of the process of learning as a designer, is where you try a number of different things out. Mine has all been under the umbrella of hats. But you try a number of things out, and then you kind of realize, actually, no, that's the thing I really enjoy. That's the thing I really want to explore. And I think that's probably why, even though sideways knit hats aren't the majority of my patterns, I think that's why people know me for that, because that's where I'm happiest, in my little kind of like space, working out how I can do it that way around.
And being in your happy place with that kind of project, I think that shows, that comes through. That is a reason to look for a new pattern
Yeah.
by you. Because it is obviously something you love doing. It's incredibly unique. But that thing that was kind of a flop the first time is now what you're known for.
It's part of the history of it. It was like it led me this way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really cool. You know, that initial defeat kind of set you back, but then you realized, no, this is where I belong. This is the space I belong, and you've made that space, and you've dominated that space, and people love you for that, which I think is really awesome. You know, staying true to what you want to be designing, not putting out something new that's going to be the hot thing this week that nobody cares about.
Absolutely. I mean, hats as a general kind of design kind of area, hat patterns are a bit of a hard sell because there's an awful lot of people think they don't suit hats or they don't want squashed hair. It's not like shawls or other kind of accessory patterns. And people were always trying to tell me when I first started, like, you know, you need to design other things. You can't just design hats. And I was like, no, I don't want to design other things. They're too flat. You know, I don't think that way. And I've definitely carved out that area for myself. And stayed to what I wanted to do. And I'm kind of glad I did. I explored lots of different things, but I'm glad I stuck under that umbrella and found my own way with the sideways knits especially.
Me too. Yeah, it's, you know, it comes back to part of why we are focusing on queer makers for the month of June. You're true to who you are. And people have discovered that that is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's really powerful. I think that's really a great space for you to be operating in. So I congratulate you for that. So thanks for persevering on. Because your patterns are really cool. I am one of those people who's never knit them because I find them intimidating. For me, hat knitting is kind of like sock knitting. It's the brainless thing that I cast on when I just need my hands to be doing something and my brain not to be.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I've never ventured into trying any of your patterns, because it isn't that no brain space for me. It does require some thought and
Some thinking. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to try one. They are incredibly unique, and I really love the way you play with color with them.
I have fun with colour, yeah.
You do?
I used to be an art teacher.
Okay, that makes sense.
I was an engineer before I was an art teacher.
Okay, yep. I was an architect before I was a yarn dyer.
Aha.
Yeah, I think our brains work very similarly. Very differently, but also very similarly in the same
Yeah.
way. Because like you, I see things in 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
Like I can easily see how this converts into this kind of thing. In a way that I think people who have more of, you know, the literature brain don't necessarily
See. Yeah.
see. Do you have a favorite design? Or is that like asking you what your favorite pet or favorite kid is?
Yeah, it is. I don't know if anybody actually answers that question very well. But I do have a favourite collection.
Okay.
And it is actually these Mitre Squares ones. If I can just show you, this is the book that comes out. There's 8 designs, all using Mitre Squares, and it's for any weight yarn in any size. And there's 8 different types of Mitre Squares, so you can do different patterns. But I had so much fun working on it. So this is like, there's a beret in there, all made out of squares. You know, there's a little helmet that can be worn as a cloche and wear around. And it was so fun to work on. And they're really, look at this, there's kind of things you can, so 3D looking.
Yeah.
And there's no finishing to it. You can use up your oddments, you do scrappy ones. And I just had so much fun designing them, turning squares into something to fit a round head. Just kind of like, I don't know, that just was a good challenge for me. So I think that's my favourite collection, probably. And my elementals. The kind of like Toff, and the first collection I did with Short Row Colourwork. They're pretty special too.
Awesome. You've got something new, either just came out or coming out soon, correct?
Yes, I've just launched a new collection of hats with Short Row Colourwork, but it's worked vertically, not sideways.
Okay.
Because I wanted to, because I had a book come out last year with Vogue Knitting for Short Row Colourwork, and which has been a great success. But I wanted to find a way to kind of give people kind of like an entry level into working with Short Row Colourwork in hats without the worry of it all being sideways and grafting and provisional cast on and lots of things that people are kind of like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. So they are knit vertically, they're knit flat, and they're seamed up the back. So it's the simplest kind of hat construction, which means that people can just kind of concentrate on playing with the Short Row Colourwork. So that's recently come out. And I have a virtual retreat with Vogue Knitting, their first ever one in September. That's going to be fantastic. So again, Short Row Colourwork and hats and stuff, but there's a lot more than me there. So there's going to be all sorts of things that people can do. So yeah, lots of stuff going on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have classes that you teach either virtually or in person, or how can people kind of latch on to this idea and play with this with you?
I have a number of virtual classes booked coming up with, I can't announce who they are yet because they haven't all been kind of like published yet, or released yet. But yeah, I do virtual classes. I have some pre-recorded ones on my website, which I'm slowly building, and I am going to be launching my own live classes from my website for some of these things as well. And of course, I'm on YouTube. It's a fairly young channel, but there's some of those things that are on there as well. So yeah, I'm Woolly Wormhead everywhere, and there's definitely more classes coming because about sideways knitting, Short Row Colourwork, hat construction, all the things that kind of like, you know, I get excited about. So yeah, definitely there you can come and learn about that.
Awesome. All right, you ready for the lightning round?
Yeah, go on then. Okay.
All right. Continental or English?
English.
Cats or dogs?
Cats.
You're my girl. Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Bamboo or metal?
Neither. Carbons.
Oh, okay. I would qualify those under metal, but yes, they are different. Interesting. Those just destroy my hands.
Oh no, I need something indestructible.
I hear you on that. I am also a very, very tight knitter. My friends joke around that my socks are bulletproof, and they kind of are.
Oh, no, I don't knit tightly. I'm a loose English thrower. I'm British, so you know I'm an English thrower, and very loose. But I do a lot of short rows, and German short rows, and you need something that just kind of like, you know, grip hard, doesn't break.
Yeah. Do you have a least favorite stitch or technique?
Lots and lots of stocking stitch and anything bigger than a hat.
That's fair. I like that. Do you have a favorite? Do you have a current project you can tell us about?
Yes, I do. My current project is actually a blanket, which is much bigger than a hat.
Your least favorite. I love it.
It's mitre squares though. It's a mitre square blanket, so it's like just like little modular bits. So it's not a blanket in my head. It's just another square.
That is the best. And then what are you currently reading or watching?
Oh, I tend to binge watch favorite TV shows. I'm on repeat, just a certain few, just to kind of keep my brain in check. And I'm currently binging on House again. It's been a few months since I watched it, so I'm watching that again.
That's one of my husband's favorites. He really loves that show.
Yeah.
I've also noticed the way society has evolved since that show was recorded. Some of those episodes are very cringy now.
Yeah, they are. Yes. Yes, they are.
Yeah, I don't think Cameron would have dealt with House now.
No. No. That's still, I still look back at that one. I just think, no, that was definitely something not right there.
Yep, for sure. So awesome. Well, I have enjoyed our time together. It was a pleasure to meet you. I'm so excited to spend the month working with you and highlighting some of the projects you have going on. And
Thank you.
yeah, that's the goal for the month. We really want to really focus on the four of you, and then, but also make sure that we are being really aware of sharing makers that that we're calling them queer, just
Yeah.
as a title. But yeah, I mean, with the current political climate and all of those things, it's more important than ever for me this
Yep.
year to highlight those folks. I actually saw an Instagram post today that said there is no pride until everybody is free, or something along those lines. And I really disagree with that. I think, yes, there's a long ways to go in acceptance and understanding and rights and all of those things. But there's also a place to celebrate how far it has come. So,
And to not lose sight of that, so that, because if you can't see how far you come, you don't see what you lose.
yeah.
We've got a similar situation in Italy with the current government and the way they're treating the queer community. Yes.
Yeah, it seems to be
Quite the same, but it's on a par. Maloney and Trump are besties kind of thing.
Yeah, unfortunately. So everybody can find their people, which
Yeah.
kind of scary.
Yeah.
But not to end on a low note, but I am really excited to work with you this month, and I adore your patterns. I think they are amazing, and I love the way
you.
your brain works.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. And don't forget, tag me everywhere so I can,
Yeah.
share around.
Awesome. And if you ever need some yarn, you know where to find some.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. All right. Thank you so much for giving me the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
All right. Thank you.
All right. All right, we are on to our next interview, and I am so excited to chat with this person in California. So that's how I've introduced everybody. I think it's fun to chat, see where you are. I've been on quite the journey across the world today. And my final stop for the day is Oakland. Is that correct?
Yes. Oakland,
Awesome.
California. Yes.
All right. Gentleman from Oklahoma. Wow, not even close.
That's okay.
Gentleman from Oakland, tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chinua, also known as Chin Matthews. I'm a queer, Black knitwear designer focusing on male presenting patterns in Oakland, California, which is across the bay from San Francisco in NorCal. So happy to be here and to talk to you about my design process and fiber arts in general.
Awesome. So you were not somebody I knew of before us starting this process to find some queer makers for the month of June. And you came really highly recommended from several of our social media friends and newsletter friends. So I'm excited to get to know you a little more today, and I'm really excited to work with you this month and then going forward. So
Of course. Happy to be here as well.
awesome. All right. So let's start off. How did you learn how to knit?
It's actually a funny story. When I was about like 11 or so, I went to this really weird, kind of hippy dippy, what's it called? Elementary school in Oakland. And so we were about to have English class, and then the teacher was like, "So you can either take the English class that you normally do, or you can go and learn how to knit." So I said, "Later, nerds, I'm going to learn how to knit." And ever since then, I've been knitting nonstop. Well, off and on, I would say. But it was knitting was always something that I came back to in life, whether regardless of how long I put it down for. So in that class, we did a 4-stitch garter stitch bookmark on chopsticks, which was very iconic to me. So yeah, that was how I learned. So it's been about 20 years that I've been knitting now.
Awesome. Do you crochet as well?
I used to crochet a lot more. I made like I was pretty good at it. I mean, I made like doilies and like granny squares, which are obligatory when you're talking about crochet for sure. I never did any garments, but I've been thinking about getting back into crochet as well. I'm just like a little bit hesitant about like starting over again, kind of, and I can like never remember the stitches. It's difficult, but it's something that I will try to get back into for sure.
Nice. Yeah, I can crochet, but I am not good at it.
Really? Yeah, it's a little bit. I feel like it's a little more difficult than knitting. I don't understand how people can crochet and not look at it. It just feels a lot more difficult to me. But it was something that I definitely enjoyed, and I definitely think that more crochet fiber arts needs recognition in the community. More so than just like amigurumi and stuff, which is nothing wrong with it, but I feel like there should be more crochet garments and traditional clothing patterns as well. So you might see it in the future, but yeah, it might be a little while to get my mojo back and get in the flow of things.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so you learned how to knit on chopsticks in elementary school. How did that evolve to now in 2025 you're a knitwear designer?
So, I mean, where do I start? I
Where do you
knitted
start?
off
That's
and
a
on.
great question.
Yeah, no. I knitted off and on until I was about like 23. When I was 23, I came out National Coming Out Day, which is in October. And so that was the first time I started to like think about my knitting more critically and more so as like a public thing because in the past it was very private to me. I kept my arts and crafts like close to the chest because I was worried about seeming too feminine or quote unquote gay, you know. So
Interesting.
it took me a while to get back to knitting as like a public thing for sure. And then
Can I
once I
interrupt you
came
for
out,
a second?
yeah,
So you paired your gayness with your knitting?
yes,
Okay.
it was. I mean, not just me. I mean, society does a lot
Yeah.
too. So,
Yeah.
it was definitely something I felt like I shouldn't do in public, or at least like I didn't want to do it in public because I didn't want people to start making assumptions about me. But that was definitely some internalized homophobia, which
Right.
is also hard to disentangle from your identity. I feel like for most queer people, so it was something I definitely had to work through. And so I started doing it more publicly and started delving in more into like garments and stuff like that. But then what really tipped the scales was one day at work, I decided, or I was bringing lunch, and one of the bags that I had was from my local store, and it had the logo on it. And so I set it down on my desk and was doing something on the computer when one of my coworkers came to talk to me, And she looked at the bag. She was like, "You know verb for keeping warm?" And I was like, "Yes." And she was like, "Are you a knitter?" And so ever since then, that coworker has been really instrumental in like me jumping off the deep end and diving into the world of fiber art. So after that, I created an Instagram account to chronicle all my projects and like yarn hauls, things like that. And then I made my first sweater shortly after, which was a big experience for me. Before doing that, I was really a hat knitter, a serial hat knitter, which were my favorite. So after making my first sweater, I was like, wow, this was not as hard as I thought. I'm definitely hooked. Like sweaters all the time. Let's do it. So then I started to think about making sweaters for myself. And I went on Ravelry. And honestly, the masculine presenting patterns were not very compelling, or they were from the 80s. So it was something that I was like, man, we could have more patterns that like I would feel comfortable wearing and confident wearing. So I decided to put the onus on myself and start creating patterns that I would want to make, and that would be good for masculine presenting people in general.
Yeah.
So I think it's a area where we still need a lot of work to build it out, and I think there's plenty of space for all masculine presenting designers or masculine presenting focused designers, if that's a thing,
Yeah.
to make their patterns.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I try my husband really likes hand knit sweaters. And but he's got a very fitted kind of preppy style and um anytime I've made him a raglan sweater, he's like, I hate this. It doesn't it's not tailored the way he wants it to be.
Interesting.
And it's really hard to find masculine patterns that are appealing to him or that exist. But there are also a lot of patterns and sweaters out there that are really truly unisex. Like, you know, all of those, not all of them, but so many of those female patterns aren't necessarily built for the female body. They're squares.
Exactly.
So that's something I always try to explain to him. Like, I can make you this sweater that a woman is modeling and make it fit you.
Yeah.
And that's something he has a really hard time seeing. So, yeah, I think the space for more masculine designs is a wide open field.
Yeah.
So,
And the other thing is, I have a health background. I went to school. I was pre-med, but decided against it. But one thing I do truly believe is that, I mean, there is also a space for unisex patterns, but
mhm.
I think clothing doesn't have a gender, but there are different body styles.
Yes.
And so I know so many women or feminine presenting people that shop in the men's or masculine presenting sections.
Mhm.
So I think that anybody can wear my patterns. While they are masculine focused, I just say that so that people can inform themselves on the fit that they want. Because I know a lot of girls, yeah, that will go in the men's section and they'll just size it differently, but they still like the clothes
Yep.
that makes them feel better and confident in themselves and their style. So, yeah, I definitely try to let people know that clothing doesn't really have a gender, but there are there are different body shapes.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Um, I think even just in those more kind of unisex patterns, showing them modeled with, a male and female body are would be incredibly helpful.
Yes.
But yeah, I really like that that's where you're choosing to focus your attention. Um, so what was the first thing you designed?
The first thing I designed was actually a fisherman's, one of those like trendy like fisherman's beanies. Is very what's it called? It's like a teeny weeny beanie kind of, people have said before. It doesn't really cover your ears. It's purely aesthetics.
Uh-huh.
But I was just really drawn to it at the time. And I mean, they're still pretty popular now, but they were a
They
lot
are.
more popular when I designed it. So I was like, oh, I want to make a hand knit version of this. So I'm not going to lie, it is a little bit of a marathon because it's all fisherman's rib, which means that every 2 rows basically counts as 1 row and it's double folded. So it can take a little bit of time, but I am more of a product knitter most of the time when I'm designing. I do love the process, but I think more when I'm designing that like I need to get to a certain product and I'll try and choose the path of least resistance to get there, but sometimes you just have to
Yeah.
do stuff to make it look the way that you want. So that was called the Sloop Beanie. Yeah, it was my first pattern, fisherman's rib, fisherman's beanie.
Nice. Our dye assistant Dax loves those little beanies. I'll have to point that pattern out to them.
It's very cute, if I do say so myself.
That's awesome. And Fisherman's Rib isn't exactly like an easy place to start with designing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know why I started with that, honestly. It's definitely hard. Like, you can't mess up that easily. Or, I mean, you can, but, like, fixing it is very tedious because of the drop stitches and, like, knitting one below. But it was not too hard, I don't think. I would mess up a couple times, and you also get a little bit of leeway and grace from the fact that it's a double folded brim, so some of it is not going to be shown at the beginning. So, I mean, I wouldn't have done it differently though, if
Yeah.
I could go back. I think it's a good pattern.
Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely have to check that out. Uh, what are your favorite things to design?
Honestly, right now, I'm on a sweater kick. Ever since I started, well, I mean, I did do 2 hats first because I was a little intimidated about doing a sweater first. But ever since I did do my first sweater, I was like, yeah, I like sweaters and wool garments in general. Something about the delayed gratification of working on something so big and for a long amount of time is just
Mhm.
really gratifying to me when it's finished and blocked and all pretty and nice and everything. And then also because of the lack of patterns for the masculine form, I think it just makes me feel more gratified and justified in the creation of these designs. I do love hats. Like I said, I was a serial hat knitter before I started making sweaters. The only issue with hats and I guess my designs in general is I try to do something that hasn't been done before or like is a fresh take on something. But that can be hard, especially when knitting has been around for hundreds or thousands of years. I'm not entirely sure. But, I just get in my head sometimes about, oh, this needs to be a completely new and novel idea instead of thinking that my experience, expertise, and style can bring a design to life that is new, not necessarily the most unique, but like new and serves a purpose in the designing or knitwear design world.
Yeah. And hats are a relatively small canvas to work with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's harder, yeah, definitely harder for me to feel like, oh, this hat is really a pattern that people will love and make.
So, designing sweaters, do you start with an inspiration or is it more my closet needs this? Or is it yarn?
Um, Honestly, I think I try to. How do I say? Well, okay, going back to when I was in high school, I had like when I was younger, I had like a awkward teenage style phase where I was just wearing all these crazy things, and I was like one day. I want to change my style up. So I want to make more informed decisions about my wardrobe and make it more like men's weary kind of. So I got a subscription to GQ. I trolled all the menswear fashion blogs and really dived deep into like what the fashion designers were putting out each year and things like that to try and like emulate some of their style. And I think that's similar to what I do now. Most of the times I'm looking at trends and seeing how I can bring a hand knit version of them to life, or yeah, more looking at trends, analyzing what's popular, and seeing like how can I make a hand knit version of this that goes well with menswear. I don't always think about what's in, or like what I would want in my closet, but I do feel like most of the designs I put out, I would make for myself. And then there are some other projects where it's just kind of like a proof of concept kind of thing that I just want to make for the sake of making it, which I'm trying to do more of because a lot of my projects now are getting to the point where I can't really post them on Instagram or social media and stuff like that before they're completed, and like we're doing like the final push for marketing before release. So that's been an issue, and then yeah, I think mostly just like analyzing the trends and bringing the menswear world to the knitting world in any way that I can.
Yeah, I think that's a really good philosophy. I think a lot of people miss that knitting is really tied to fashion. That they're so connected. I think a lot of knitters think of it more as a hobby,
Yeah,
and a craft versus its incredible connection to fashion
yeah,
in general. It's actually something we pay attention to a lot with color. Like we're looking for color trends and making sure we have that available for our customers because you're not only looking for the sweater trend that is exciting, but you also want to have the color trend as well.
exactly.
Um, so yeah, I'm
I
glad
think
you've
that.
put those together.
Yes. I think that definitely my sense of style and knowledge and willing to deep dive into fashion trends is very like important to my design process as like a skill that differentiates me from other designers. But then also, and it's very important because of the demographics of the knitting community, most of them being female. So a lot of my designs, I'm trying to market not necessarily to them, but to their partners or loved ones who are masculine presenting. So it helps a lot with that too, because I feel a lot of men or masculine presenting people gel with my designs more because they're based in fashion trends that are already like in the stores. So it's like easier for them to say like, "Oh, I like this sweater because it's like I've seen something similar in a store or something like that," which can be a good thing and a bad thing. But I think it is important to note because you're making an investment in the yarn and the pattern and your time, so you want to have something that is going to be easily wearable and integrated into a wardrobe with these loved ones that are masculine presenting.
Yeah, absolutely. You are, and I mean the collective you are making an item generally to be worn
Yeah.
as a garment of some kind. There's obviously other things that aren't garments, but yeah, like picking a pattern is I don't think a lot of people put together picking a pattern and how that falls into their wardrobe and is part of their collection of clothing. So yeah, it's actually something I touch a lot about from the color perspective in some of the classes I teach. How to connect. the colors you knit with the colors you purchase in ready to wear,
Yeah,
and make sure that they're a complement. So,
interesting.
yeah, I love that you're doing it on the pattern side. That's really interesting. Do you have a favorite pattern that you've designed? Do you have a favorite design?
Yes. It's definitely the dipole beanie that I designed. It's a 5x1 ribbed beanie with a double folded brim and an interesting crown construction. Um, it's funny because I've seen I well okay I when I first made that hat and that design I hadn't seen this shape of crown before, which is why I wanted to make it and thought it would be a good pattern. It instead of having like three, four, six, or eight decrease sections, it just has two that decrease to a point, and then you graft the stitches together on the top, which I think was pretty novel at the time. I hadn't seen it before, at least, but I have recently seen two other patterns do the same thing, which I mean, it's hand knitting. Like, there's only so much you can do, and so I'm not faulting anybody or saying like someone stole my idea, but it is just reassuring in my design process to be like, oh, that was a good idea because people also like those other patterns. So it's definitely my favorite to knit and my favorite hat, at least aesthetically. I knit them all the time. They're great for gifts. One of my signatures is I love to put my logo labels on my knits. So I'll put them on the hat brim and also on the sweaters, like in the corner, a little bit on the front. So the dipole beanie has a really big folded brim that's like 4 inches, so I can put my logo label on there, and they're great for gifts. And also a very easy knit because it's a 5x1 rib. It's basically stockinette, but just with a little some extra. So it's easy to follow, not too hard to knit, and a very pleasurable experience all around.
Yeah, yeah. Um, okay, so you've mentioned this with both hats, the double folded brim. Is that something you do a lot?
Yeah, it is. I mean, well, in terms of the hats, yes, I did a double folded brim for both. I love that look more so than what people normally do. I feel like is a tubular bind off or cast on to achieve that look, but the tubular cast ons for me are a little bit fiddly, and also I think the double folded brim does look better in my opinion. But since the sloop beanie is a fingering weight and the dipole beanie is a sport weight, it's not too thick, but like it does have some warmth to it. So I think that a double folded brim is fine. But I do also love a double thick collar, and most of my sweaters have a double thick collar. I just think it looks better. It gives the collar more shape and weight, and you don't have to worry as much about the cast on edge or like how that looks.
Yeah, it also gives it more structure.
Exactly,
Yeah, it
exactly.
helps it stand up a little better. Awesome. Um, so we've touched on it a little bit about your design process. Is there anything else you wanted to say about that?
Um, Not too much. Well, I guess the one thing that I'll say for people that are designing or wanting to be designers is that um, it's all there's a lot of trial and error, for sure. You can't be afraid to rip back or restart or just in general improve your designs. So yeah, make sure that if something doesn't sit right with you, that you take the time to go back and try and fix it as much as you can. And then also, don't be afraid to explore and try new things when you're designing. But yeah, I feel like sometimes I do well, and it's like the first, maybe second try is good, but a lot of times it just takes a while to get things right.
Do you do a lot of swatching?
I do. I think that swatches are more important for me than even the sample knitting because I don't know. I love swatching. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I think it's really important. One, to get an idea of how the stitch patterns work and what stitch patterns work with which yarns. Two, for me, I treat it as a warm up to knitting a pattern. It gets my fingers used to the stitch patterns. And then three, it gives you a realistic idea of how the fabric is going to look and behave, which is very important to me in my design. So I do swatch a lot.
Team swatch. I'm with
Yes,
you.
exactly.
I'm with you. I love making swatches. Um, all right, you ready for the lightning round?
Yes.
All right. Do you knit continental or English?
I learned English, but I prefer continental. I didn't even know it existed until like 8 years in, though. So, but now I'm continental.
Okay. Uh, this isn't one of the questions, but is your gauge significantly different between the two?
At this point, probably. I don't really know because I don't knit English. I only knit English when I'm doing color work. I do like one in each hand,
Hmm.
but I'll have to see. I haven't done it in a while.
Yeah. I tried switching to Continental, so I
Mhm.
made a pair of socks, all Continental, and my socks are bulletproof to begin with. I'm a very tight knitter, and
Mm.
these socks were intense. I am such a tight knitter when I do Continental. So yeah, I do the same thing when I'm doing color work. I do one on each hand.
Yeah.
All right, cats or dogs?
Cats. My cat Amara, she's so cute. Where is she? I don't know where she is right now, but I love cats. They're just amazing to me.
Awesome. We are 3 for 3 on Team Cat.
Okay.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. No question about it. The across the street there's a black owned coffee shop. And we just go over there so much that they already know my order. They're like, "Oh, the usual," and I'm like, "Yeah,
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. I love to support a good neighborhood coffee shop.
yeah, they're great."
Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Okay.
I'm not as much of a sweets person,
All right.
but yeah, I definitely need the savory for sure.
Is there a go-to savory?
Well, okay, this is weird, but like, if I'm gonna eat a lot of something, it's gonna be meat probably. So,
Okay.
like a bunch of ribs or like a bunch of chickens, a steak, so something like that. I was vegetarian for like 3 years. It was for environmental reasons, but I had to stop. I was like, I can't. I miss meat too much, and I need more protein.
Um, Bamboo or metal?
Oh, metal. There's yeah. I can't do bamboo. I have to. Then the stitches just have to glide for me. It's just yeah, a necessity at this point. And I like the sound of the clicking too. It like soothes me.
The exact reasons I hate them.
Really? I mean, I always tell my I mean, I guess it's a preference thing. I
Yeah, it's
tell
totally a
my
preference.
students in
Totally.
class to use wooden needles or bamboo because of the grip and it's less likely to drop stitches. But
Yeah,
yeah, I need the need for speed.
gotcha. I tell all of my students, needles are like underwear.
Mm-hmm.
You find what works for you, and that's what it is.
Yeah,
Um,
truly.
and then sometimes there's the ones in the back of the drawer that are
Yeah.
they're
No,
there if you need them.
a great analogy.
Yeah. All right. Do you have a least favorite technique or stitch?
Well, okay. I'm gonna give my semi least favorite because the least favorite will get me canceled, I'm sure. So my second least favorite technique is twisted rib in the
Ooh.
place of like traditional ribbing. Um, I think that it does. Most people use it to solve an issue with, I think, one by one ribbing, which I understand, but I don't think that twisted ribbing is the solution. If you ever knit one of my patterns with a one by one rib, you notice I use a modified rib instead, where you knit one, purl one for a row, and then you slip one, purl one for the next row, and repeat that instead. Because I do agree that one by one ribbing does make the knit stitches really elongated and they kind of like disappear, like the distinction between them. But when you do the slipping rows in between, it creates a very nice, pronounced stitch column, like it should look, I think. But yeah, I just can't get behind twisted ribbing in the place of regular ribbing. Maybe in like the garment itself, but like in the place of regular ribbing, no.
Yeah. In cabling and like intricate designs like that, and twister rib is a great way to emphasize those stitches.
Exactly.
What are you currently working on?
Um, I should grab
Go grab it.
Let me 1 sec. Well, it's a swatch, like you said. Hold on. It's great that I just finished this. So like I said before, I'm working on trying to make more things just for the sake of making them. This is a design that's gonna. Well, I hesitate to call it a design because I don't know if I'm gonna write the pattern because it might be a little bit too labor intensive to sell and like tech or not tech edit, but test knit. So if I do make a pattern for this, it'll just be a or excuse me, it'll just be tech edited. I probably won't test knit it, and I probably won't hire a model and get a photo shoot for it like I normally do. But it's something that I can work on and show on my own. But it's like a all over colorwork sweater. I tried to base it on like '90s shapes wallpapers, kind of,
I totally
like from
see
my
that.
childhoods and stuff like that. So this is the big swatch. I've had this idea for a while, but I was intimidated by making a repeating pattern. I was like, how do I do this? I wasn't really sure, and I'm like not the most like graphic design minded person. So I was like, oh, this is not going to be easy. And then I was like, a couple days ago, fiddling around with stuff on what's called Stitch Fiddle is what I use to make my charts. And I was like, okay, let me just Google it and see what to do. And lo and behold, it was a very easy fix and like very easy to do. So I just whipped it together and started making my swatches. And then that was the final one. It did take 3 swatches, but I think it's funny. I started out with this one, which was way too busy, just way too much going on. And then we went to the second one, which was a little better and all right. But then I had to decide to go to the final one after moving some things around and making it less dense. So this was the final product altogether. So
That would
it's
be
also going.
really cool in color changing yarn.
Oh yes, it would be. I just the only other thing is so that's gonna be the pattern most of the sweater, and then I'm also going to do a big version of my logo on the front in color work. So I wanted it to be a little more flat, so it's not too busy. But I agree that like a version without my logo would also be cool, and with color changing yarn would definitely be the fun thing to do for sure.
Yeah. So I'm going to put a little bug in your ear that
Sure.
a lot of designers do is they make an accessory, a hat, a cowl, something like that, that is a bigger swatch for the sweater.
Exactly.
That would be super cool as an infinity scarf.
Oh, true. I know. I guess I didn't think about how um, it could come to life in another way. Because I was so set on the sweater. But no, that definitely could be a design in the future. So we'll see. We'll see how I like the sweater, and then we'll go from there, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, and
But I appreciate
the
it.
the accessory could be a good way to introduce people to the techniques that they're going to need for the sweater.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's also not the greatest because I was like going into it as a one of a kind sweater kind of thing.
Hmm.
The pattern isn't the greatest written. Like I would need to make a couple changes so that it would be more user friendly because there's like a row where there's no contrasting color and you have to like carry the floats a lot. So I don't know. It was an interesting exercise for me to be able to design something that I wouldn't have to like worry about the what the knitter thinks about it and just like have full creative expression basically.
Yeah. Yeah. It's your designs. You can do whatever you want with them. All right. And then last but not least, what are you reading or watching?
Um, Okay, watching. I finished my first season rewatch, and I'm about to start Andor again. It's Star Wars on Disney Plus. Pretty good show, I think. People have been excited about the second season, so I'm excited about that. Reading. I don't get to read as much as I like to. But the book that I'm reading now is called The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, I believe. It's the first book in the Stormlight archive. It's like an epic fantasy book in the style of like Game of Thrones, where like the world is kind of the main character, and it goes through the perspectives of different people living in the world. So I recommend it. It's a little bit dense and somewhat hard to get through, but a very interesting look on what's it called, fantasy for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, that's all I have, unless there was something else you wanted to share. You got any upcoming events that you'll be at, or classes you're teaching, or anything like that that we should
Um,
point out?
well, I do teach classes at Coven of Stitches in Alameda, a beginning knitting class, and then sometimes an intermediate class about how to make a baby hat, and classes about how to do color work. Um, So if you're interested, you can go to Coven of Stitches Alameda's website. And in terms of events, I'll be at Rhinebeck, not doing anything. What's it called? What's it called? Set in stone right now, but I'll be working at Karita's booth. If you'd like to come and see me there and say hi, and then probably some other things in the fall that haven't been lined up yet, but I will be posting on Instagram as they do line up.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, hopefully we can catch up at Rhinebeck. We will be
Oh
vending at
yes.
Indie Untangled on Friday. So
Okay, perfect.
if you're there early.
Okay.
So awesome. Well, it was a pleasure to chat with you. I'm really excited about working with you this month, in
Yes.
particular, and then even going forward. So,
Of course.
really excited to highlight the four of you, and you guys have a lot of similarities. I haven't chatted with Chase yet,
Hmm.
but I know Chase.
Yes.
So yeah, you guys have a lot of crossover in kind of your design process and all of the things you guys are doing, but doing it all very uniquely, all doing it in your own kind of way. So I really, really love that. I'm really excited
Thank
about
you.
this month and showing you guys off a little bit.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll chat soon.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye. All
Hello, hi.
right. Hi. I am so excited to chat with you. So person in
Okay.
Istanbul,
I'm
introduce yourself.
Yiğitcan. Also, you can call me Pufilo too because I know it's a bit difficult to pronounce, Yiğitcan. I am a Turkish knitwear designer. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to be chatting with you today. You were one of the queer designers that was brought to us by some of our social media friends, and I had never heard of you, and I was really excited to see your work. So I'm excited to chat today and learn more
Thank
about
you.
what you
Yeah,
do and
I'm
learn
really
more
happy
about
that
you.
you invited me. It really means a lot.
Awesome. I'm happy to do so. All right. So let's start
Yes, I
off
knit.
with you knit, correct?
Yes,
Do
I
you know
did
how
a
to
little
crochet?
bit of crocheting before, but it was mostly some gifts to my friends little amigurumis when I was in university. I was doing a lot of them. Yeah, but then I stopped it, and I'm not crocheting right now. Yeah.
Okay. Who
I
taught you how to
My
knit?
mom
How did you
taught
learn how
me
to knit?
actually when I was a child. Um, yeah, she taught me. I was actually around like 9 or 10 years old, and there was lots of snows during that time in Istanbul when I was a child, and there were long holidays, snow holidays. And one of the holiday, she just taught me about how to knit, but I was just doing like little swatches and yeah.
Do you remember the first
Yes,
project
but
you
it was in
finished?
high school. Yeah, I started to knit properly,
Hmm.
actually, to proper complete a proper project in high school. It was a cardigan with stripes. Yeah. I think
Nice. Do you still
it
have it?
is somewhere in my parents' home. Right now I don't have it, but I think it's my parents' home. Yeah, it's still around.
But it's still around somewhere. That's awesome. So, how did you evolve from learning to knit when you're young, knitting in high school, to becoming a
Well,
designer?
after high school, I studied textile design. So my most school projects were about actually knitting. And yeah, I always loved knitting, so I just decided to follow that urge in me. And yeah, and then I do my internship about knitting too, so then I get into it more. And but during that time I wasn't aware of there are knitting patterns and there are pattern designers. And then I find out Ravelry and everything, then I just wanted to just give it a try. And yeah, here I am now.
How long have you been designing?
I started to write my patterns on in the summer of 2020, so 5 years. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Awesome. So you're relatively new at this, but you've been doing it long enough to kind of
Mhm.
know what works and kind of
Yeah.
have your feet under you. That's awesome. Um, so what made you want to
What
design
made me
patterns? What was your inspiration?
Well,
Why did you start
first
designing?
I was actually looking for jobs in the textile industry, but I didn't really want to get into in the fast fashion industry because I saw my friends that they are working a lot with lots of hours, and I didn't really want to get into this. And yeah, it feels a little bit more. Hand knitting feels a little bit more free, and I feel like I can express myself through hand knitting a little bit more. So that's why I actually decided to go this path.
Cool. What kind of, I'm going to assume, being in India, or sorry, in Turkey, I'm going to assume you have different fibers available, other yarns that you're working with than what we make here in the United States, and what I sell to my customers. What are some of your favorite fibers to work with?
I kind of like all kind of wool. I mean, with different kinds of wool, and I love to experiment with them. I recently love to work with linen yarns. Yeah, it's also very inspiring for me right now. Yeah, I'm trying to in Turkey there is not really a good wool, I think. Mostly we also take it from the other countries. But I love to try to different rules from different countries, Spanish rules, British rules and everything. So, yeah.
Is there a large yarn store market, like yarn
In
market in
Istanbul,
Turkey?
yes, there's a large, like a kind of bazaar in Eminönü. They sell lots of yarns there, but they are mostly with acrylic and nylon. They are not really good quality fibers. Yeah.
Okay. Why are you so excited about the linen
I don't
fiber?
know. It feels different. I'm just discovering that I haven't done too much designs with linen yet, but I'm experimenting it. That's why I'm a bit excited about it. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we have a silk linen yarn that we sell that is incredibly popular. So yeah, happy to hear some more folks working with linen. We are, I think your climate is warm, but more
In
dry, more
Istanbul,
desert,
it's
right?
in Istanbul. It's very humid.
Or is it very humid?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so it is here as well,
Hmm.
where I live in the southern part of the US. And um, we wanted to create a linen yarn to make it more useful
Hmm.
in those hotter, humid months. So you still have something you want to wear, and fibers you still want to work with that aren't warm wools. So yeah, I like that you're discovering linen and working with it. I'm curious to see
Yeah.
what you come up with for designs with it, because it is a unique fiber. It does tend to stretch a little bit, and yeah, but
Hmm.
it's an incredible fiber to work with. What is your favorite thing to design? Sweaters, shawls?
Well,
What do you
kind of
like to
depends
design?
on the time mostly. When I started to design, I love to design garments and sweaters mostly. But then I swiped to a little bit more to shawl and scarf era because I felt more free in terms of shapes, in terms of colors and textures. Uh, but now I'm currently enjoying. I also started to design socks recently, so I also enjoyed that a lot. So I may go a little bit more sock era right now, and but I would say also hats my all-time favorite because yeah, a hat accessories actually, yeah. Mhm.
Okay. So
Like
something other than
hoods
hats
maybe.
or
Yeah, I just recently also designed a hood and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, so.
nice. That's cool. So what inspires your designs?
Mhm.
What gets you motivated to
My
create a new pattern?
inspirations comes in a very various different ways. For example, designing a collection right now about elements. I did waterbender and airbender, and I'm currently doing firebender. I inspired by the elements for this collection. And I also have other part that I want to inspire by my culture, mostly about Turkish kilims and their motifs. Turkish mythology is also very inspiring me right now. Yeah, I also inspired by bold graphical geometrical shapes too. Yeah. So it's a bit all over the place, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I think allowing your creativity to be sparked by anything
Hmm.
is a really cool thing. The elements is not something I ever thought of as something to spark creativity. It might be something to play
Yeah.
with some of the colors we design. It's a good idea. How long does it typically take you to go from an inspiration, an idea to a pattern that you're ready to publish and ready for others to make?
It depends on the design mostly, but I would say like 4 and 5 months. For example, for Airbender, it was about 5 months to find the idea and to swatch it, to knit my own sample, and give enough time to my testers. So it was fully, about I would say 4 or 5 months for a big complicated design. Yeah, but sometimes it just the idea is click and you can just start the designing. But sometimes I need to wait a little bit more to think about it, to search a little bit more. Yeah.
Do you do a lot of swatching to try different fibers or different yarns to to get kind of the texture or the finish you're looking for, or do you normally know this is going to be a linen project, or this is going to be a wool project, or this is going to be
No, I
a
usually
mohair
swatch a
project, something
lot.
like that?
Yeah, I have lots of
Yeah.
swatches, and I'm also
Um,
looking at them time to time to get inspired again. So yeah.
nice. All right,
Yes.
you ready for the lightning round? Okay. Do
I
you
need
knit
English
continental or
style,
English?
but sometimes I use my other hand
Okay.
to when I'm working with the color work.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cats,
Cats or dogs?
coffee.
Coffee or tea?
Yes.
Coffee. Yeah,
Yeah,
Turkey
Turkish
has
coffee we
very
have.
strong coffee, correct?
Yes.
Not for the weak. Sweet or
Sweet.
savory? Do you have a
Um,
favorite
favorite
sweet?
sweet. I love baklava. I guess it will be too obvious, but yeah, I love pistachio with baklava with pistachios. Yeah.
Sounds good. Uh, Metal
I
or bamboo needles?
haven't really worked with bamboos yet, but I love metals, so I think I will stick with metals.
Okay. Do you have a least
Hmm.
favorite stitch or technique?
I'm not really enjoying much with cables, especially with the large cables,
Okay.
big cables. Yeah, yeah, not my thing much.
Not your thing.
I
What are you currently
am
working
working
on?
on Firebender, my design. I can show it to you actually. It's like a beanie. It's gonna be a beanie with a wavy edge. It's gonna be a brioche beanie. Yeah, yeah.
It's beautiful. Can you show it again?
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
Very pretty.
The
What
yarns.
are the yarns you're working
This
with?
is from Rosarios for. Uh, it's a merino. Yeah, No, it's a Portuguese wool. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
It's a Portuguese wool? Yeah. Do you guys get
In
a lot of Portuguese
Turkey, I'm
wool
not
in Turkey?
sure, but they just send it to me to make a collaboration. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Nice. That's exciting. What are you currently reading or
I just
watching?
started to watch the last season of Last of Us. Yeah, and I'm not really reading a fiction, but I'm sometimes looking at my Turkish mythology book. Yeah.
Nice. That explains where
Yeah.
the inspiration's coming from. Nice. Awesome. Was there anything else you wanted to chat about that we didn't
Um,
get to?
I think it's fine. I can't really think about anything right now. But yeah.
Okay. What's the best place for our
Well,
viewers to find your
my
patterns?
patterns are on Ravelry. They can look at my name, Yiğitcan
Okay.
slash Pufido. Yeah, they're all there right now. And my Instagram is Pufidonits. I share a lot about my process and my when I'm launching a pattern or test calls from there. Yeah.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure to chat with you. I am very interested to learn more about the different fibers you have in Turkey, and what you're working with. So I'm excited to kind of pay attention to what you've got going on, and
Thank
hopefully
you.
learn some more about Turkish culture. Um, So, with my previous interview with Willie, we were talking about how unwelcoming the political climate is in Italy, as well as here in the United States, towards queer makers and queer or just queer folks in general. Is that something you're experiencing in
Yeah,
Turkey?
Turkey political situation is also very bad at queer folks. Um, there is literally no, protection over any queer people. Uh, yeah, we don't have Pride since I don't know, like 2007 or something. They they cancel it, and there are lots of policies everywhere to in the June month mostly to make people not gather or everything. Uh, yeah, it's a bit difficult actually. Yeah, but but personally, I haven't
I'm sorry to hear
really
that.
got into any bad situation yet. I hope I'm not, but yeah,
Hmm.
but it feels a little bit make me feel a little bit more. How can I say it? To more, I cannot express myself that I want to. I need to be always be a little bit more careful when I'm outside, especially in the nights. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I'm going to assume there's violence associated with that. Is it coming from just the government, or is it also the people? Are the people more receptive to your
Mostly
lifestyle than the
governments.
government is?
People are usually, I mean, they're not. They're just looking at you in a bad way. Yeah. So,
Okay.
but yeah, there are also people that supporting the government. They are also a little can be violent. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. It's not, just doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand why loving the person you love is a reason to
Yeah. Well,
treat you any differently. So, yeah. Well, I am really excited to get to know you more this month, share what you're working on, maybe introduce you to some additional plant fibers.
yeah.
Maybe I can tease you with those. Yeah, and we are really excited to highlight you and your work this month. So I hope our viewers reach out and are yeah, looking to try some of your patterns. Do you do any classes
Mhm.
or anything like that? Any virtual ways for people to work with you, or is it
Yeah,
mostly just
mostly
through
through
Ravelry
Ravelry
and
and
social
social
media?
media. Yeah, I haven't do any virtual classes yet, but I will give a workshop, and I don't know if I will pronounce it correct. It's in a festival in Netherlands, Breidegen. I don't know if I can.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a festival, and I'm planning to give workshops in yarn shops. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Hmm.
So it's a festival in the
In
Netherlands.
October.
When?
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm gonna assume it'll be pretty chilly. Well, it was a pleasure to chat with you. And like I said, I'm really looking forward to focusing on you and our other designers this month to
Thank you. Thank you
help bring
so much
awareness
for
to what you're
having me
working on.
here and chat with me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay.
All right. Well, I will chat with you soon. Well, I hope you enjoyed all of those conversations with our 4 queer makers for the month of June. I alluded to this at the end of my conversation with Chase, but I really love what all 4 of them are doing. They're working in very similar spaces, but also very different spaces. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed speaking with all 4 of them. So I thank each and one of them for their time. And yeah, so those recordings are going to end up being longer than we anticipated. So I'm going to rush through my knitting. 1 for podcast time's sake, 2 for my time's sake, and 3, I really don't have much to show you guys. So I was on the road essentially the entire month of May. I left my house May 1st. I didn't get home until May 12th. I was home for a week. And then my husband and I went on a much needed vacation. And then I got home just before Memorial Day, or on Memorial Day. So I was on the road a ton in May, which resulted in very little knitting. So I am going to quickly run you through those. So I don't remember exactly where I was in Mark's socks last time I recorded, but they are currently, I have a sock, which I think may be where I was. And then I have most of a second sock. So I have like 2.5 inches before I need a toe. So there is hope that Mark will get socks for Christmas. And hopefully I can get them 2 pairs this year. So when I originally started doing this, Mark got a pair of Christmas in July socks and then a pair of socks in December. So we'll see if I hand these over in July or hang on to them till December. The second thing I've been working on, which is, I'm going to call it a finished object, but it's finished. So I finished my peach fuzz sweater last night. It's currently inside out because I got some ends to weave in. Just a few. But it is done. This is out of Loop Yarn. They're yin and yang. I do not know the colorway names because I don't have the brain space to remember such things. But yeah, I bought this yarn last year at Maryland Sheep and Wool, so I'm pretty stoked that this is already out of my stash, unlike previous years. I have a giant skein of yarn from Jill Draper that I bought in 2015 that people refer to as yarn babies. My yarn baby's like a third grader at this point. That is on the list of things this year. We'll see if it happens. But yeah, this is my Peach Fuzz. I think. Is that what it's called? Oh, yes, it's Peach Fuzz. So it is, for all intents and purposes, done. I will weave in some ends tonight during our open knit night, open stitch night. So, I did bring Mark's sock with me on vacation, which is why I did get so much of it done. I knit that most of the time we were gone. And I didn't want to bring the sweater because I wasn't bringing that much stuff. And we were in Cancun. We were at the pool the entire day. The last thing I wanted was a giant sweater. So that stayed home. I brought Mark's sock, and then I also cast on a new project. So last football season, well, let me back up. My husband and I have season's tickets to the Carolina Panthers. So we are there no matter what the weather. And it occurred to me last year that I do not have a set of accessories that match. I pull so many bright, colorful things out of my stash of knitwear accessories, and I seriously look like I grabbed whatever I could. So I'm trying, one of my goals for this year was to make a set of everything in gray. So I could wear it anytime, but would also obviously work for football season. So I finished the hat, and then I decided to start on the neck item. I didn't really know what I wanted to do for that. So I spent some time on Ravelry, and I wound up 2 skeins of our Latta blowing rack color. Simple, neutral, beautiful gray color. And I cast on the Sophie shawl. And you can see the parts that I knit on vacation. And you can see that, like, I don't know. And then, like, there's some wonkiness here. But then when I got home, things are nice and straight and beautiful. So, yeah, I am working on this. This is the simplest pattern if you can count to. The only thing in this pattern is the number you count to. So I'm not going to give that away. If you can count to a specific number, you can make and do an I-cord and make increases and decreases. You can make the Sophie shawl. It is really no different than the Sophie scarf. It's just a different number. So I am plugging away on that, and yeah, that is all of my knitting. That's all I have. I am about to cast on a new project that will also be gray. And I don't know how much I'm going to share of that, to be honest. I am at the time of year when we are starting to think about next year for Queen City Yarn. So I'm currently in the process of interviewing 3 potential new yarns. And the next project I'm going to cast on is one of those yarns. So I will probably show you a little bit of it. I'll show you the pattern for sure, but I don't know that I'll talk much about the yarn. Maybe I will. Depends on how the interview goes, I guess. So yeah, that is all I have for knitting. I have not purchased anything knitting related. I must have recorded after Maryland. I did record after Maryland, because I talked about my, crochet page, binder page for my thread and maple binder. So I did record after that. So yeah, I have nothing purchased to show you either. So that's my knitting. Little advice from my staff was that is life. So I hope some of you can potentially relate to wanting to do things, but other things are just, unfortunately, more of a priority than my knitting time. It was really bad several years ago, to the point where I actually made a New Year's resolution to knit for 15 minutes every day at a minimum. And I made an entire page in my planner for every day to check off my 15 minutes. And maybe that's something I should start for the second half of the year. Because yeah, I didn't knit at all last week. I went to knitting group on Wednesday night, worked on my sweater, and then I worked on the sleeve Sunday evening for a short period of time, and then I finished it last night. So, yeah, not a whole lot of knitting going on here. So, if you are in the same knitting slump, you're not alone. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and enjoyed my conversation with all of our queer makers. And thank you for supporting them. That is the goal for this month, for June, to start our conscious effort to be better allies, to create, to make sure makers that we love, no matter who they are seen, I guess. So, sorry, I didn't really think that out before I started. But yeah, so that's the end of this month's episode, and I will see you guys next month, and I have no idea what that entails. I lie. I do know what that entails. We will be interviewing Casey Hurley. I don't know Casey's last name off the top of my head. But Casey is designing and releasing a new shawl out of Lada that will be our focus for next month. So we'll see you then. Bye.